What is up, everybody? We have 10 minutes to talk about cold feet. Now, Eric, I'm not talking about the kind of cold feet that a person might get before their wedding night.
Sure.
Because I'll be honest, I never had that. I've never been so certain of something in my life, and I tell you what, it keeps getting better every single day.
A man's man.
Do you think she's listening?
Definitely
They're
not.
always listening. Probably not. So we are going to talk about cold feet. We're talking about cold weather, static, whitetail hunting, sitting for hours.
Yep.
In possibly sub-zero temps.
Oftentimes, late season.
Oftentimes, late season. I tell you what, I've had a lot of November hunts that were like late season hunts. It just depends on the on the fall you get. We kind of had an unseasonably warm one this year. Next year could be different. And you got to be ready for it, right? You got to be ready. Nothing will ruin a hunt faster than cold feet. It is just simply hard, if not impossible, to stay on stand if your feet go numb, and actually could even be dangerous, right? Eric, I'm looking to you on this. I've done a variety of things over the years that have gotten me by. Gotten me by. I definitely think I'm prone to getting cold hands and feet. We got a couple examples here. What are your recommendations? I've got some as well.
Okay, so on the table we have two boots here. I actually forgot my visual aids, but Mark, it appears that you were reading my mind because my visual aids would have been identical to what you brought here. So
this is why we build in redundancies.
Exactly. So we have a full-length 800-gram thin-slate rubber boot, similar to any full-length rubber boot on the market, and we have a Cabela's Saskatchewan pack boot. This is
the Saskatchewan Hunter. Now, this is an older version. I've had these for probably, 14, 15 years now. They still make it. It looks a little bit different, but definitely a cool boot and a good option.
2,000 grams of thin-slate in that one, so it's a big dog. But I'm actually going to start a couple steps back, and I'm going to start at the sock. So when I think late season hunting, the first thing that I am managing is moisture. Your feet are going to sweat. When you're wearing any of these boots, be it the 800-gram thin-slate version or the 2,000-gram version, your feet are going to sweat regardless. Rubber boots, the cons are they cause your feet to sweat faster.
And there's people talk about breathability and things like that. There's no escape from the moisture in here. For all intents and purposes, if your foot sweats in there, it's going to stay contained within the boot.
So my cold weather footwear system has been a bit of an evolving process, but growing up, hunting up in northern Wisconsin, I believe the coldest day that I ever hunted in the woods was opening day of Wisconsin's gun deer season in like 2009 or 2010. It was like a high of -3 degrees ambient air temperature that day. With the wind chill, it was like unbelievable. But anyways, I wanted to like set the stage there. So when you're doing that, you're still walking in. You still have your travel distance from the vehicle to the tree stand. So you have to be cognizant of that, of your feet sweating. So to do that, what I wear is a polypropylene liner underneath a thick merino wool sock. The reason I go polypropylene is that takes your moisture, your foot sweat, and moves it away from the foot into the merino. Merino does a great job of keeping your feet warm even when wet. So I know that by wearing either of these boots, my feet are going to sweat, so they're going to get wet. So that merino sock is critical. Looking at these options, though, what I would gravitate towards, even on that like -3 ambient air temperature day when walking a long distance into the woods, is the 800-gram thin-slate rubber boot, which might sound counterintuitive because this big Alaska, Saskatchewan, sorry, I keep calling it the Alaska. Yeah, very close.
Coincidentally, this boot is essentially a camo version of what Jeff King would wear along the Iditarod Trail, which does take place in Alaska.
Exactly.
So there you go.
Exactly. So for long hikes, long commutes into the stand, I'm going rubber boot with a toe warmer, one of those grabber toe warmers on the top of my toes.
I was going to ask about location.
Also, when it comes to your late season hunting boot, size up a little bit, and that's not just because you're wearing a thick sock. With feet, one of the circulation is critical to keeping your feet warm. So you want more movement for your toes to be able to kind of, move around, stay warm inside the boot.
You don't want to constrict your foot.
Yeah, don't buy your boots like you would buy your running shoes. They should fit entirely different.
That is such a good point. And actually, back in the day when I got this set of boots, I'm like, I wear a size 10, and actually I kind of fluctuate between 10 and a half. And I was like, well, I'll get these in a 10. Knowing what I know now, and even just after wearing these boots a little bit, as warm as they are, I wish I would have erred on the size up. And again, it goes back to don't constrict your foot. Leave room, in either of these versions, leave room so you can wear a little bit thicker sock if you want. And also leave room for something like, particularly in the rubber boot style, so you have room for that toe warmer to shove it in there.
Exactly. A couple other things that I want to point out with now transitioning over to the Saskatchewan Hunter boot, the pack boot, is first and foremost removable liner inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
pull that thing out because it's kind of a cool system.
Yeah. So this liner comes out super easy. It's something that you can dry out at the end of the day. Put it on a boot dryer. Personally, I don't like putting my boots on the boot dryer. I've had bad luck with boot dryers. I'm not sold on the concept of taking a leather boot and putting it on a boot dryer. I'd much rather put my liner on the dryer, make sure that my liner is clean, and then put that back into the boot the next morning.
I would agree with that. I'd say if you are sold on a boot dryer, my brother is. He's like, oh man, dude, I love these things, and he's constantly hunting Western Washington. But I guess I would. Side towards just using like the airflow function, not like set it to stun on the high heat.
Exactly. And so a couple other things on this pack boot. Another thing to pay attention to when you are looking for your cold weather boot in a tree stand setting, when you look at the sole on this, that is a super thick sole. Why that is important is because it keeps your foot. It builds in more space from the platform, the cold aluminum or whatever material the tree stand platform is, to the bottom of your foot. The greater that material, the more space. So that also builds in a little bit extra insulation for the bottom of your foot. I like having that. I talked about the toe warmer. I like having that toe warmer on the top of my toes, and I'll put it on when I get to the tree stand. I'm not going to walk in with it because I don't want to increase any extra sweat or heat that isn't needed at that time.
Well, and also just even from a comfort standpoint, it's going to likely slide one way or the other. Then you're walking on it, potentially get a blister. It's going to be uncomfortable. Just like you said, do it when you get there and get it going.
Exactly. Another thing that we don't have here on the table today, so I'm kind of shifting gears away from examples that we have here in studio, but what I've been playing around with a little bit is using my regular uninsulated leather boots that you would wear on any spot and stalk Western hunt. A couple reasons for that. One, when you're buying boots for that big mule deer hunt, big elk hunt, you've got a lot of money tied up in those boots if you're going with a really high quality pair of footwear. So getting the most mileage out of that is something that I think about a lot. I think a lot of folks listening want to get more for their dollar spent, and that is certainly a way to do that. The nice thing with those boots is your feet are not going to sweat for a long walk into the tree stand. So even though whitetail hunting is much more a solitary game than it is like a spot and stalk game like you would see out west, a lot of guys, especially if you're doing the mobile, public land thing, you probably have a mile-ish walk built in, with a backpack on your back, sticks, tree stand, saddle, whatever. So you are definitely, you have a lot of movement. You're going to be working up a sweat, all that stuff.
Well, not to mention, like, if you are covering that kind of ground, like, and for instance, like, depending on the hunt, I'll generally wear either a rubber boot, but probably more often I actually do just wear my my uninsulated leather boots. Right now I've been rocking the Crispy Laponias uninsulated boot, extremely lightweight, very like I guess I'd call it like trim to the foot, which
almost like a trail running boot.
Almost, yeah. But I don't know, really digging them so far, but I run those from early to, I'd say, even mid-season, as long as it's not that cold, predominantly because, like, they are lighter. I feel like I can hike better in them. They're more comfortable. I'm less prone to probably getting a blister. Like you can definitely hike a ways in a rubber boot, but I mean they're just not as optimal for
correct
for long distances. Now, if I have to cross a creek, then I'm probably just going to go with the rubber boots.
And another thing that you didn't mention there is in the late season, everything is frozen, which means that it is even that much more important for your foot to articulate the ground underneath it. You're not going to be able to articulate your steps and stay ultra stealthy with either of these options that we have on the table. Definitely a place for them. If stealth and nimble movement is your top concern, neither of these are your solution. So,
but Erik, we're talking about warmth here, and we're both talking about early season, just kind of leather hiking boots. How could that possibly work?
You just teed it up, Mark. So, there are a couple options, and this is something that I'm experimenting with. Right now, I have the Arctic Shield. They're little $40 insulated like booties
like
that go
like an overboot.
Like an overboot. They go over the top of your leather boot. So pairing those with a toe warmer and your traditional leather hunting boot, I'm able to get down at least into the 30s and like upper 20s. I haven't experimented with much colder than that yet, but that's something that I still have a tag in my pocket for this late season. So I'm going to be hunting well into the end of January, and that's going to be a system that I keep kind of like toying with a little bit. There's other options out there. There's down versions. I have some concerns about the down versions, just being that they're a little bit more fragile. I hunt out of a saddle, so if anyone is unfamiliar with a saddle platform and how it works, is basically like a tree stand. It comes off the tree, but then unlike a tree stand where your foot would be flat on top of it, your foot's going to be at an angle and you'll have a pressure point. So I'm concerned that the down versions might get ripped or torn, or your down would separate by that pressure on the bottom of the boot.
Definitely would. I'd speculate creating a wear point there.
Yeah.
And just like we were talking a little bit earlier, because I've put a lot of thought. I'm literally spend hours trying to figure out what's going to be the best system for what we're talking about here. But I also worry about just like the pros of this boot, like you're talking about, kind of insulating you from the cold metal of the tree stand. You got I guess would it be conduction going on there? I'd worry that might compress, and there just wouldn't be enough insulation between the bottom of your foot and the stand with that sort of system. I have not ruled it out.
Sure.
But I'm still trying to figure out how to make it work.
I'm going to wrap this up with a rapid fire pros and cons of the rubber boot versus the pack boot. Pros of the rubber boot: waterproof, certainly more versatile than the pack boot. I truly think that if you hunt the Midwest and you need one boot to get you through the entire season from September into January, a 800-gram rubber knee-high boot is your best option. Cons to it: your feet are going to sweat. They are not conducive to long-distance hiking. The pack boot, on the other hand, ultra warm, very, very conducive for long hours on stand in frigid weather. Aside from that, though, a couple cons: it is very difficult to drive in these. Your foot will literally hit the gas and the brake pedal at the same time.
Yes, I think we've both proven that.
Yep. And also hiking with these, if you have a long walk to your stand, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to either throw them in a backpack or throw them in a frame pack, huck them over your shoulder, whatever. Unless you're walking like a half mile, these are a non-starter for me.
I've done a couple longer hunts in those, and it just wasn't. It just didn't work that great. Or, longer distance hunts, I should say. A couple other pros, I would say, it's cold out, fingers get numb quick. So one thing that I think is good about both these styles, no laces. You essentially got, one strap here. These kind of have like a cool system on them where, you pull that, tighten that up, and then you can actually tighten the cuff around the top too. So that's a good thing. On the rubber boot side, now these are 800s, and I'd say I'd look at that as like a do-all, particularly like if you're talking about, I'm going to put the toe warmers in, I'm going to try a couple other things, maybe even I'd assume those Arctic Shields could even fit possibly even around the rubber boot as well. You can get some heavier insulated ones like that Lacrosse Burley Alpha Pro 1600, I think. I've been eyeballing that thing a little bit, thinking, again, maybe for those hunts where I'm not hiking, maybe like 2 miles as a max, or maybe I'm going slow. Or, heck, you might be going 200 yards and you're going to go sit. So I've been looking at that. as well. The couple other things I've seen that I haven't tried that maybe people, if you have tried, let us know if it worked for you.
Comment below.
Comment below. The icebreaker boot blankets.
Yep.
Which is kind of like similar, I guess, functionality to the Arctic Shield. Seen some debate
Very
on
much
those.
So.
I don't know. I've been looking at that one, and then I also saw another one which was more for mountaineering. That carried a little bit of a price tag with it. It was close to $200. It was like a purple haze overboot. It looked more neoprene. My question with that is, and again, comment below. This is a legitimate question I'm asking. It looked like it was for, I guess, more active use. So it gave like a very low temp rating to like what it would keep your feet warm to.
Sure.
But it also seemed like a person who was wearing it would also be active. So you've got blood flow, you're exerting yourself, your heart's pumping, things like that. So
yeah.
A couple tips that I would give, like sometimes I think we have a tendency to be like more is better. Oh, one set of socks. Well, I'm gonna do 3 sets of socks, like we talked about before. If you constrict your foot, it's over. You need that space for the blood to flow throughout your foot. You don't want to constrict your foot. You also need that airspace to actually heat up around your foot.
Correct.
To keep your foot warm. That's what I mean. It's almost like think about why down works. I'm a big fan of down.
Yep.
I mean, I've been entertaining down booties, down, even down socks. Actually, I haven't done it yet inside a rubber boot. You'd need to have enough room, and also if once you start to sweat, what's going to happen to that down? I don't know, Eric. I've been thinking about this.
That is an interesting
lately.
thought. That is a very interesting thought.
I'd err to a half size up though. I mean, obviously, with this
explain
style
why that is.
Just to give yourself that little bit of extra room.
And with down, when it compacts, you lose your insulation properties.
Yeah. Getting back to the down thing. Yeah.
Right.
You compress it, it's going to lose insulation. You get it wet, it's going to lose insulation. So, I don't know.
Interesting.
All
I've not thought of that, Mark.
Cross a person's mind. That would definitely be a situation where, like, maybe you get to your stand. You're like, I'll put the little down booty
Exactly.
on. But then also now you've had to get to your stand. Maybe you have too much room in your boot and you got a blister on the way in.
Right.
That's why I said I haven't figured all this out, but I'm looking for some additional solutions. Like you said, you can use the additional the toe heaters. They've got the full length ones. I've even taken one of the big the mega hand warmers, and like you said, just when I get there, kind of perfectly place it on top of my toe and slide her in, and use that as a toe warmer too. But
one final thought, and I know this is unrelated specifically to feet, but one thing that can't be overlooked when it comes to those cold weather hunts is bringing some kind of hot beverage with you to the tree. Coffee, hot chocolate, something. Honestly, it sounds very out there, and maybe like it's more of like a nice to have and not a need to have. I actually consider that a very critical piece, because by having that, your comfort on stand goes up. You're going to be able to spend more hours in the stand. Also warms you from the inside out. So drink up that hot Joe, that hot chocolate, tea, what have you. Figure out a perfect footwear system, and I think that is the baseline recipe for good late season hunting.
I like it. Eric, thank you for the information. It's always, staying warm on stand. Always a challenge. How have you been staying warm on stand? How are you keeping your feet warm? We want to know. Please let us know. I'm going to be hunting here in a couple weeks and still figuring out my system, so the sooner the better. And other than that, thanks everybody. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.